going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 5, our big return back after our huge technical difficulties we had last episode. I'm here with Peter, and this week we brought Black of Heart writer Chris Charlton to the show. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, good to meet you guys.
So, right off the bat, we just want to let everyone know that Black of Heart is available in your comic shops and everywhere else you can get books on July 28th. Make sure you check that out if you are a fan of any sort of noir comic or noir plus horror. It's actually a really unique blend of those two genres that I was a big fan of. Shout out to Comic Burrito for pointing me in the right direction on those guys. Big time thanks there, because this was a book that was right up my alley. Now, this book had a very interesting way of coming into the world. Tell us a little bit about that, Chris.
I don't remember the years now because it's been so long that it's all kind of fuzzy, but I basically self-published this. It's a 5-issue series, and then it was picked up by a smaller publisher, Narrier, and they ran a Kickstarter to basically put the collected hardback edition together, which is available on my website. And then SourcePoint decided to pick it up. So the other publisher kind of folded up, and so nobody was doing anything with it. Nobody was promoting it or anything like that, and it was just kind of sitting on my shelf. So thankfully, SourcePoint picked it up, and they republished it last year as single issues, and it seemed like it really found its audience, which I'm super grateful for. So and now we're doing the trade, which will be out this summer, July 28th. It's been an interesting road.
Yeah, that's very. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about what was the process of getting that picked up? Was it something that you had kind of stopped actively pitching? Was it, you said it was just kind of sitting on your shelf. Is that literal? Was it kind of a project that you had moved on from and then someone approached you about?
Yeah, kind of. I had been in contact with SourcePoint over the years. When it seemed like the other publisher wasn't going to be around, I approached them again because we had talked about it in the past, and they were still on board. And I gave them kind of a pitch for not only republishing Black of Heart, but also the continuation of that series. So something I just wrapped up earlier this year is the sequel, which is White of Lies. And now we're working on putting that together. So very cool, man.
Should we expect David back on art for that project?
No, unfortunately, David's schedule and mine are not going to work out, but which is a bummer. But I think I'm okay with it. It's the evolution of the story. I think is kind of fun to have a different artist and a different perspective on the new one. It is a different vibe. It's a little less of the horror vibe, and a little more of the a straightforward kind of like a noir murder mystery style. So whereas Black of Heart is set in New York, it really does go through a lot of really dark places. White of Lies is 3 years later. It's set in California, so it's less dark and gritty and more sun and mystery. It's a totally different kind of animal. I would say Black of Heart is masculine to White of Lies being more of a feminine. They both go together great, but it's two completely different stories. So having a different artist on it, I think, is kind of a nice evolution of that. And if there's an opportunity to do a third series, I would probably want to even do a different artist on that one. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because it kind of sets each story, like you were saying, apart from each other. Right. So you got you got New York City, a little dark and gritty, and the art reflects that. It's a very, very much, you can feel the emotion of the story you're telling through the art. So it's exciting to see. Now, can you say who the artist on the next chapter is going to be?
Not yet, but thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. I figured I'd ask at least.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. It'll kind of set the work apart. Now you said you were kind of going a different direction with like the feel of the next book. Can you give us any information on that?
Well, just it's. I mean, I'll just tell you, like anything that I write is going to be kind of dark, right? So this is not a step away or a departure from that kind of darkness stuff that I'm twists and turns and stuff that hopefully you don't see coming, that get smack you upside the head. That's kind of the thing that I'm into. So it's just a slightly different tone on this, and it's going to be full color, whereas like Black of Heart, that color kind of builds throughout it.
All right. I'm showing a little preview while you guys are talking about it of the first issue.
And so, that was sort of the fun of that. And my idea in my brain is to have that first story start with like black and white splashes of color, and the color builds up to like the big full color finale. And then do, that middle series, which is all full color. And then to do a third series that starts full color and goes back to that black and white. So now if I got to, do more than 3, then that's just the way I wanted to do it, Right. Anyway, I thought that was kind of a fun thing. And I think that people's reactions to the use of the color in Black of Heart has been like great. Everybody seems to be really into it. A lot of people say, that's really unique, and I agree. That's part of the reason that we did it and went that way.
I think that visual is what really stood out to me.
I think
when I first started, it was black and white, and then the first is what I showed with the dead woman at first, and the colors, and it just really sunk in for me. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, the use of color was really used sparingly, but when it was used, it sent a heavy message.
Right. Yeah, it definitely was meant to grab you. So hopefully that's what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I have to ask, because it almost seems like, were you a Dick Tracy fan at all? Is that like someone that you like to read? A character you were interested in? Because it almost feels like a story about Dick Tracy who's gone completely off the deep end. His life is unraveling. We kind of get a peek into that.
Not really. But I will tell you that, like, I'm not sure how old I was when that movie came out, but I was obsessed with that movie. I think after Batman, that movie coming out with all of the colors and all of like the villains and man, I was completely sucked into that. I had like all the little action figures and all that stuff. And at that time, I was watching like the old, started re-airing the old cartoon and stuff like that. So it's funny because I haven't really thought about that, but that has to be some piece of how I got kind of pulled into this stuff. When I was in my early to mid 20s, I kind of got my first taste of some like film noir stuff, and like Double Indemnity and Kubrick's movie The Killing, and and it really, like, I guess I had sort of dismissed some of that stuff as like, I don't know, boring or just not of this era. And man, some of those movies, they hold up really, really well. And I got kind of sucked into that. I think that idea of the anti-hero and, it's all kind of shades of gray. Like, even, the detective Drake Harper in Black of Heart is like, he crosses the line quite a bit, and pays the price for it, so, but that's part of the fun of that. And, playing with some of those tropes, some things you expect, and I've tried to use some of those things to throw people off or throw them a curveball. And it was, I'm really kind of I really loved the language back in the way that people talked and the the kind of quippy energy that you got from those old films, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring to this, and keep it kind of upbeat, because it's such a the subject matter is so dark. I don't know why. It's just I guess when you really know your character, you can just hear it, right? And so it becomes more of like me just typing what I'm hearing versus like trying to sit and think of like, well, what's a really cool line that I could have him say here? When you really have a grip on the character, you don't have to work that hard. It's just like, oh, he'd say this, and he's a badass. So, it's like a lot of the work's already.
Those lines. That was something I appreciated, is that you have the main storyline going on, but for 5 issues you did a lot of like character building, a lot of world building. Not only is he dealing with this crazy serial killer, but he's got problems at home. He's got a lot of personal problems going on. So the way that you were able to really balance the main story and also make you really care about this character's life in only 5 issues, like that was really impressive. And like you're saying, you kind of like gave the character a voice and spoke from him, and I think it really shows through the work.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't have something going on in their private life, right? Like, and it can really seriously impact everything in your life. So, rather than just kind of stick to the beats of the the serial killer angle, or him tracking this guy, and it made it more personal for me, and I think it anchors the story a little bit to make it more of a personal journey for him, and beyond that detective angle, his whole life is kind of falling apart. He's dealing with his past. This is all bringing up stuff from him and his dad, and I think that's that piece of the story is actually one of my favorite things about it. Just that you get that kind of history of him. His dad was a cop, and he's kind of a cop just because of his dad, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he likes it or is all that great at it. So there's that pressure there,
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of like, something that you're almost born into. Right. And it's like everyone always expected you to be something, so you end up being that thing whether you like to or not. And I think that kind of reflects in the fact that he does ultimately more or less get the job done, but it is anything but clean and neat along the way.
Yeah, definitely not.
So this trade, it does exist out there, correct? Like the Black of Heart full story is out there. So what is the biggest difference with publishing it now with SourcePoint?
Oh, well, really just eyes on it. I mean, as someone who's been self-publishing for years, you're pretty limited to the shows you can make it to, and the stores locally that you could get to help support, unless you're like actively like going out of state and you really like hitting it hard to get stores to get your books in stores. There's not a ton you can do. I mean, Diamond's not going to take just some book that I made, right? So that's the big piece, is just getting more eyes on it, so that it can find its audience a little better. And then obviously they're promoting it online, and they're except for last year, they would be promoting it at shows and things that like I can't even get to. So it's just a much wider audience, that's the big piece, I think.
Yeah, with last year, with everything going on, I was kind of curious, how did that all work into with trying to get the series out and the issues with COVID? Was there any kind of speed bumps you hit, or any kind of crazy things that came up with it?
No, not really. I mean, it's unfortunate because I think it could have had a wider release if there had been bigger shows and things like
Right.
that. It also hit though kind of the end of con season, so I think the first issue was in November, and so we may have wrapped it up around when like C2E2 or something would have been, but most of the bigger shows are going to be spring, summer, fall anyway.
Right.
But that it still did really well. So I don't have any complaints at all. Like I said, I mean, those guys promoted the hell out of it. I tried to promote it as much as I could, and I don't think anyone was disappointed with the sales numbers. So that's all you can ask.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And Twitter and other social medias have really become like a good resource, I feel, for the smaller scale writers or artists, just to network. And we're one of many podcasts or YouTube shows out there, and there are other opportunities, like the rest of the world kind of changing with the times. I feel like the comic book industry has kind of done that a little bit too, where it's a lot more networking with people and
Right.
getting the word out there that way. I still feel like comics is if someone that's talking how great this book is, it's like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go check it out. And I think that goes a long way with like the communities here.
I was shocked, honestly. I'm not super active on Twitter. I have been obviously in the last year or whatever, but yeah, it was really nice to like log in and see like, oh, somebody tagged me in something, like why, and then to see like people I don't know talking about the book. That was really great. That was really nice. Like, all right,
that's got to be cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you find anyone, like, for me, example, Black of Heart was my first exposure to your writing, but now I'm retroactively going back, checking out some of your other works, like, The Dolls, Sleepless, Binary Gray. Have you seen any other upticks in any other of your works because of the success of Black of Heart?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think for me, sales are usually pretty slow on my website anyway. It's like if you didn't meet me in person at like a convention or something like that, like pretty rarely people will go to the site. But yeah, the last few months has been pretty busy actually. I did a big sale over the winter, and that helped. And then I have actually a sale going now for the first 6 issues of Binary Gray, and it's nice. I think some people didn't want to wait for the paperback trade, so they went ahead and got the hardback edition, which is gorgeous. I've got a copy of it. And
very nice.
Yeah, no, this is a beautiful book. And
that reminds me of when I was checking out the Kickstarter. Some of your other like rewards that you had for that project were pretty sweet. You had the vase, you had the wine topper. Like, I'm kind of sad that I missed out on that all those years ago now.
Yeah, I have one of those vases. I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
It's a conversation starter for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What's going on with this vase, man? Everything okay? But yeah, it's definitely led to other people to picking up other things, and I'm like super grateful for that. And the response has been really well received. So
that's awesome.
So I know you said you're working on another project. Do you have anything else coming down the pipeline? Any other things in like any other states of creation?
Yeah, I have. I got a lot of stuff. I can't talk about too much of it. I have the thing that I'm working on. Probably the hardest right now is a very strange project. That's probably the most personal, the most powerful thing that I've written, and so I'm really excited to get it out there. And I can't tell you a whole lot about it. I will tell you that it's 3 separate stories that are sort of converged into one story, and they all kind of happen on different planes of reality. And so it's really interesting. I think it breaks a lot of rules, and I think it will really grab people's attention once it's out there. So really excited for that, and hopefully have some news that I can talk about soon. I have another thing that it's sort of like half written.
I mean, honestly, I'm just excited to know. Yeah, I'm just excited to know that you got other stuff coming because, I was really enamored with your style and just the way that you blended, 2 genres that I really enjoy. So I'm excited to hear that there's going to be more from you that I get to read.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I'm excited too. And White of Lies is, I think, is a really, really strong follow-up. And I'm super excited for people to get a chance to read that and see what the reaction is going to be. It has some really awesome twists in it. I have some short prose stuff that I'm working on, and I have another series that's it's a mini series, I guess, that right now is about halfway written. And as soon as I'm done with the other thing I'm working on, I'm going to be finishing that up probably in the fall.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting. Now, with convention season kind of coming back into the fold, conventions are starting to get announced here and there. Do you have any appearances planned?
Right now, just the Dayton show, which is Gym City Comic Con. I think that's July 24th and 25th or something like that. It's right around there. And then the Cincinnati show, which is, I believe, in September. So at this moment, that's all I have planned. Kind of easing back into it.
All right. Staying local.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people right now, easing back into things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if any of this has taught us anything, it's that, shows are great, but people can still live on their, making their artwork and things even without them. So that's a good realization. I think there was a real hunger for news stories and artwork and stuff during all this. I think if you're tired of flipping through Netflix every night, you start to branch out a little bit, right? And maybe that's the silver lining of this, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point. I was working at a comic shop last year, and we were blown away by, everyone was like, well, we don't have movies coming out. We won't have new comics coming out for a while. I mean, our bookshelves were just by day, we're just getting emptier and emptier. People coming in and going, I'm going to check out something I haven't read before. I'm going to check out, I've read all my superheroes. I want to check out something different, Right. So I think that's a real good point that people really did start to branch out. And, hopefully some people that maybe were a fan of the movies were like, all right, I'm going to check out the books now. Any new comic book reader is a good comic book reader. So I think that's a really good lens to look at that through. Because there's a lot of ways to, be down about last year. We missed convention time. Right. And there's a lot of, I think you said your first issue came out in November last year. I knew a couple people who their first issue or first 2 issues came out, January, February, and then the world stopped. And, there was that uncertainty of when is my next issue going to come out? Is my next issue going to come out? So, there's a lot of ways to look at last year, but I think the best thing for all of us is to kind of look at, what good things came out of last year. It's easy to dwell on the bad. Let's find some silver linings. And I think that's one of them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, everything slowed down enough for me personally where I could kind of take stock of a lot of things. And it was a really important time for me, and having the time to lean into, promoting this, promoting Black of Heart, and then seeing, the good reaction from the readers. It really helped keep me motivated, when you're kind of stuck indoors and you don't really know like where we're going and how long this is going to last. It was great to keep me, mentally where I needed to be focused. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what kind of reader are you in, just for fun? Say you're going to go to the comic shop, pick up some comics for your shelf. What are you reading?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a little out of the loop. I have been reading a little bit of. I kind of just go and I ask Steve, and the guy who runs my shop, like what's new and interesting, and usually come home with a variety of things that I've never heard of, and that's kind of what I like to do. I tend to steer clear of the bigger books unless I've heard that they're really great. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm also, I go so rarely that it's tough for me to just jump into something. So I am typically looking for like first issue that I could, start something with, or I'll wait until a series is done and then pick up a trade or something like that. I hate to say that because really, I feel like I should be supporting the community more. I just don't have time between like working full time and writing in my spare time, and then trying to find time to just unwind. It's a real challenge to find that time and energy. My focus is on creating. That's the number one thing for me, and everything else kind of falls in behind that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you do IT as your day job, right?
Yeah, which is part of the inspiration for the Binary Gray series. That's the main characters.
That's exactly where I was going with that, actually. That's exactly where I was going with that.
Yeah, that was.
So is that something that kind of like you were at work and you're just kind of like, you know what, this would be an interesting premise to explore?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it really was a thing where, I had been in a band for a very long time, like 15 years. And while I was at that job, that all kind of fell apart. And so I took a kind of a year off, not on purpose, but just because I didn't really have anything else to do. And was just completely like miserable without having that creative outlet. So, I had written some comic scripts in the past. I've been writing, like different types of stuff my entire life. And I was like, well, let's, give this a shot. So I kind of jumped in to that with Binary Gray. I didn't know at the time. I probably shouldn't have gone as hard as I did. I mean, I did 12 issues, which for like a new guy,
that's a lot going in.
It was a lot, and my hats off to Raoul Roque, who is the artist on that, and Brent Fowler is the letterer, who's also the letterer on A Black of Heart. It was it kind of crushed it. I mean, we had the same team for the entire run, and at one point in time, I was doing like 3 or 4 issues a year, which for self-publishing is pretty good. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, I guess everybody has like a different way of doing things, right? Like I prefer to finish a series. Where I think some people maybe want to just write that first issue and hand it off to an artist. I prefer to have the whole story so that I can tighten things up. It's a kind of an organic process for me writing. So I may get to the end and feel like, well, something's missing. And I always had that fear of like writing myself into a corner or something if I did it the other way. But so since that series, all 12 issues were written, I kind of handed it off to them and started writing Blackheart. And then Sleepless. And so I had multiple issues of multiple books coming out at the same time. And it was really hitting it pretty hard. So, the Binary Gray never really found an audience like Blackheart did, but it was also kind of like I was saying earlier, it was subject just to like the shows that I got to. So it was never, picked up by another publisher. I was in talks with Alterna for a while, and that ended up just completely falling apart. But yeah, no. So the story is about Alex Gray, and he's an IT guy, just like I was and am. And he, through an accident at his job, he gets the ability to communicate with electronic devices. So it becomes, something as his day job kind of becomes as simple as him touching something and like he can communicate with it. So it's sort of set in a world where there are already like superheroes and supervillains, and his father is actually killed when he was a young boy, in this, caught in the middle of this superhero battle. And so he kind of goes on a hunt for the man who killed his father. And it ends up sort of exposing like a government kind of agenda, and sort of conspiracy theories around, how these villains and heroes were created. And it's all sort of tied back to this like CIA experiment in the 70s. And so it has like a lot of like, kind of moving parts. It's not, I mean, if you read Blackheart, then you can probably tell I'm not going to write a traditional superhero thing. It's right. Pretty messed up, and it's pretty dark, and it goes to some kind of messed up places. So, yeah, it's good stuff. So I have the first 6 issues, I think, are on sale. Oh, that's right, because it's called Binary Gray. It's on sale. First 6 issues are $10.10. And
nice. Staying on theme there. I like that.
Yep. Yeah. So you don't need a code or anything. You can just go to the website, which is charltonwrites.com, and just go to that bundle, and you can just add it to your cart. You don't need to like a special sales code or anything. And then I'm actually out of the trades for those. This is my first trade, and you can see David Hollenbach did all the covers. Sorry, I'm reversed here. And then this one is the second trade. So I do have these, but these are sold out. So I started just bundling up my single issues until those are gone, which there's not a ton left. I think I have maybe 20 copies or something of each. So when they're gone, and then we trade only after that.
All right, I'm going on right now to buy them.
I was just going to say, I know what I'm doing as soon as we get off. Right. So, yeah, because, like I was saying, one of the fun things has got to be people kind of discovering your past works retroactively now, like I plan on doing. But, I read a synopsis on most of them, and I'm just like, man, like I wish I had found you sooner. But, ultimately it's just kind of like, I did. And that's got to be fun for you, too, because it's kind of like, these labors of love that you've done over the years, and now people are kind of finding them and like loving them. That's got to be kind of like a nice feeling, just a little bit of like validation there.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a case of better late than never, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope that the success of Blackheart means I can keep doing this for a while, and that's really where my focus is. That's what I'd like to do, and the happiness and the fulfillment I get from writing is really unparalleled of anything else in my life. And when I'm really hitting a story and like everything's coming together, it's like all the little problems just kind of go away. Like they all get the volume turned down. and that I think that's a big sign. If you've got something like that, you should follow it. Not everybody has that, so.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, has writing always been something like throughout your life that you've always had an interest in? How did that come about?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it sounds really stupid, but I got my first writing award in second grade for a story about a dog who jumps in a pond to get away from a bee. And
hey, you know what? Everyone's got to start somewhere, and I think that's awesome.
I honestly, I truly think, like, looking back on that was the first little piece of validation I ever got, and I'm sure it informed the rest of my life. But yeah, I mean, I had always written stories. I wrote tons of really terrible short stories in middle school and junior high and high school. They were really not good. But I grew up reading a lot of Stephen King and stuff like that, and so it was always kind of horror focused, and I'd put my friends in them and come up with gruesome ways to kill them, and then let my friends read them. And, I don't know.
It's damn, man, do we have to have a talk? We doing okay?
Yeah.
That's funny.
No, I think they were supportive at least, but yeah, no. And then with the band stuff too, it was I went through that phase of high school, and I was just miserable, and wrote a bunch of really bad poetry that somehow got me into a band, and then as I kind of grew into that. I think what I got from it was really just pacing, for music, and then how to get what's in my head out onto the page, and that's always evolving, and every story I write the process is a little different, but it really, I think, ultimately comes down to trusting your instincts. And listening to your gut. Sometimes I do a lot of meditation, and I have solved a lot of story problems in the middle of a meditation, and I can't explain it. I'm just thankful for it. So it's I'm sure everybody has
kind of that eureka moment where it all clicked.
Yeah, you gotta love that. I'm no complaints.
Great. Now for the art, how did you end up collaborating with David? Was he a friend, or you sought out his work, or?
Yeah, sort of friend of a friend. I met a mutual friend at New York City Comic Con, and they had done a flip book where it was one guy's story on one side, and you flip it over, and it was a story by David, and I was like, oh man, this guy's art is really unique, and at that time, I think I was just starting to write Binary Gray, and I had just a shitty little ash can that I had taken to New York Comic Con, and I was like, definitely somebody's going to see this and want to give me a writing job. But I met Matt Dix is his name, super nice guy, and we got to talking, and I got his book, and I reached out to David just through his website, and we did. He did all the covers for Binary Gray, so 12 covers. I had, at the time in my writing room, I had that old Houdini poster that's it's sort of him in the middle, and he's all tied up in different locks and
right.
things.
Yeah. Okay.
Around the edge of it is all different types of things where his hands are tied, and he didn't know that I had that in my office, but that's what he sent me for the first issue of Binary Gray, and I was like, yeah, this is the guy. Everything felt 100% right. And so we did those. We did a 5-page short in Sleepless. And then I had that idea for Black of Heart, and I just thought his artwork would be such a unique style and give it such a cinematic flair, that really would kind of make it pop and make it stand out from other books and even other books in the genre, right? And I think he was a little nervous about it, and the same reason, I think he gets nervous with like larger projects because his style is so in depth. It takes a while,
Right.
and so it took a while. I think the 5 issues came out over maybe 3 years to self-publish because just of his timeline and obviously he's like working another job, right? And he's doing it in his spare time,
Right.
and all that stuff. So it's just a time-consuming thing, but the end result I think is pretty awesome. So and also just like one of the nicest people you ever met. He did a piece of artwork for me for my banner that I put behind me at shows and stuff, and he gave me. We did a couple shows together. I think we did a show in Columbus, and we did a show in New York together. And he gave me one of the original artwork for that banner, and it's like it weighs like 2 pounds. I mean,
Oh wow.
it's like seriously layers of different thing. I mean, it's got everything in it. Paint.
Oh, that's
ink.
outstanding.
It's just really cool. He's really is like a true artist, and he's still like killing it, doing like magazine work and stuff like that. People hire him for artwork for articles and stuff, and just one of the nicest people I've ever met. Super privileged that we got to work together.
I mean, I can't imagine another artist fitting the bill for what you guys did together. Just the pulpiness, the grittiness, the darkness, and like we were saying earlier, just the use of color in very select ways. I mean, everything just complements each other so well. So, I mean, my goodness. And what a coincidence. Of all the pieces he could have sent you, it's the one that's hanging up on your wall. I just think that's really fantastic. Like, what more of a sign do you need than, hey, he sent me a piece of work that is literally on my wall right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really felt like a sign, definitely.
And, the other thing I got from all that is that all of us just reading Black of Heart now, complaining about having to wait a month between issues to see what's going to happen next. Really, we were all just spoiled rotten. We didn't even know how good we had it. Because, the day one readers, they were waiting, months. But, all in all, I'm just happy to have gotten to read it. I'm happy it got picked up. I really cannot stress enough how much I enjoyed your style. I'm really looking forward to more. So that's really exciting. And I'm glad that book got found.
Thank you so much, Ren. I truly appreciate it. And when people come to me and they say, things like, Raymond Chandler and to even have someone mention my name in the same breath as Raymond Chandler is like, hey, I'll take it, because that's it's something that you would aspire to, right? And I'm in no way saying that I am as good as Raymond Chandler or even in the same ballpark. But if somebody else thinks that, hey, that's great by me. I mean, it's the genre that I truly,
I mean, what a compliment.
Yeah, it's it means a lot to me. It's something I'm really passionate about. That time, that era. I'm absolutely in it. I'm totally sucked into it. I would love to continue to tell stories from that time period, and whether it's a continuation of Drake Harper or something else completely. You know what I mean? It's a fun sandbox to play in. Feels really natural to me. I don't know why. but I'm also not going to fight it. So
now, thinking back to your childhood, is there anything that you can point to and be like, you know what, that might have sparked my interest in this genre?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess, it probably started more along the lines of stuff like Seven and Silence of the Lambs and those types of things, growing up, that really kind of hit me over the head. Stuff like, so obviously, every example I'm giving you is a film. I'm a really big film buff, and in a lot of ways, Blackheart was my film, where Binary Gray would have been like my TV show. But I grew up in a house, where there weren't really like super limitations on that stuff. I mean, I watched stuff I probably shouldn't have been watching at a really early age. So I couldn't tell you the age, but I know I watched Jacob's Ladder at a really young age, and it really like kind of worked my little brain.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it also like opened up a whole thing, and so really dark stuff like that really kind of like took hold. Like I said, I read a lot of Stephen King, but nothing specifically that was like crime or noir related. I think that just came later, and I had been wanting to do something kind of in that genre, just in the back of my head thinking about it, and I took a very insane kind of cab ride in Denver, and I realized how vulnerable you are when you get into a cab. You're really at the mercy of that driver, and if they wanted to pull some crazy stuff on you, they could if you weren't prepared for it.
I'm kind of glad that I'm not the only one that thinks that way, because I'm always like, man, this guy could just drive off the road right now if he really wanted to, and I could do nothing about it.
Yeah, I think in my head, the tagline for this, or like a quote on the cover would have been like, "Does for taxis what Jaws did for beaches," or something like that. Like,
never get in a taxi again.
Yeah, but just think about it before you do. That's all I'm saying. But no, it's that experience was really like kind of eye opening, and I was like, well, there's my villain. And of course that was just the first little baby step of it, but that was kind of the hook, and obviously, the covers, the first two covers anyway, that's right in your face, right? So
right,
absolutely.
But
now,
anyway.
all right. So I gotta ask, a little bit off topic from what we've been talking about, the artwork in your office, the stuff behind you. I love it.
Thanks.
Where is that from? Yeah, that is fantastic.
That's an artist named Boneface. I couldn't tell you, like, I can't remember like where he's from, but I know he did, I think, the last couple Queens of the Stone Age albums.
Okay.
And he used to, I don't know if he still does, have some stuff up on a website called, I think, society6.com. And it's kind of one of those websites that are like more popular now, where you can get a piece of art printed on canvas or on a pillow or whatever, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And so I had those ordered from that site a long time ago. I don't think they're still available, but I thank you for.
Yeah, those are just fantastic, because I'm just,
the colors are vivid behind him.
Yeah, I noticed Batman and Cap at first, but then I'm like, you got Thing, Iron Man, Robin in there.
I have a thing for creepy artwork, so this definitely is my aesthetic.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it fits. It fits the storytelling almost too. Now, is that ever anything you would consider doing? Like, I know you said that you kind of stay away reading the bigger comics. Is there any big, like maybe a Marvel or DC character that you would just like love to write one day, or you have like this dream story in your head that you could pull that character into your style?
Yeah. I mean, I would take on probably just about anything as a challenge. But for like dream story, would definitely be like a Batman Man-Bat story.
Okay.
I think I could bring a nice kind of grittiness to it. And I would love to do more of a noir style, So, maybe if I can keep on this noir road, somebody will take notice and be like, hey, give that guy a job. But
yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't say no, that's for sure. But, other than that,
absolutely.
I have a lot of little ideas for different characters, stuff I grew up with. I kind of got started because my uncle gave me some of his comics, and it was a lot of like 70s Spider-Man stuff. And I think that Binary Gray has that kind of vibe to it. Even though it is like darker, it's almost like that kind of classic vibe meets more like a Kick-Ass vibe, where it does get to like some brutal stuff, But yeah, I mean, Daredevil's a great character, Spider-Man, obviously. But I have a special thing for Batman and Man-Bat. Maybe one of these days. That'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it kind of goes without saying, too, that Batman and Gotham City would definitely fall into that noir genre pretty easily, too. Almost taking it back to its roots. You get away from the noir vibe, but, at its heart, Batman is a noir detective.
Right. Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's kind of overlooked, I think. But at the same time, like, there are always going to be those elements in a Batman book. But I would like to take it back to, like, let's set it in the 40s. That's where you've got my interest. You know what I mean? So whatever it is in Elseworlds or whatever, like, I think that would be pretty sick.
Well, I can tell you right away, I'll go ahead and speak for Wes on this one, just knowing how big of a Batman fan he is. You would easily have 2 readers right off the bat. So,
oh, yeah.
Well, if you know anybody, just drop them my name. I appreciate it.
Gosh, you know what? I'll keep throwing your name out there, but I wish I had connections that big in the industry.
Right?
You and me both, man. But despite that, I'm going to keep telling my own detective stories and having a blast doing it. So that's what really matters, I guess.
Right.
Ultimately, that's what it's really about. As long as you're enjoying yourself and you keep writing what makes you happy, and I feel like the readers will come. And it's a much more organic process than it's got to be so much more difficult writing out of what comes natural to you. So I always really appreciate like a writer or an artist or any sort of creator that kind of like is like, you know what, this is what makes me happy. And if the people enjoy it, great, but I'm enjoying making it. And ultimately, I think that's what's more important, no matter what you're doing. Do things you enjoy. And I think that's really the key.
And I don't think that you're going to get a great result if you're not enjoying it, right? Like if I was writing something I hated, then it's going to come through, I would think, in the book, and that's kind of my hope for the new project that I'm working on, is just that, like I said, it's a very personal story, and to me, it's very powerful, and I hope that translates. I hope that somebody reads it and gets that message, and it helps them in their life. It's and not just kind of misses it, misses the point or whatever. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is really trying to go a little deeper with some of the themes and the messages and the stuff that I'm writing, and hope that people can grab onto that, and take something away from the story instead of just something beyond being entertained for how many issues, you know what I mean? something that maybe they take back with them on a personal level.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, was comics always your favorite, mode of getting your stories across? Were novels ever something that you thought about? What about comics drew you there?
Yeah, I think that I'm a really visual storyteller. It's super easy for me to throw a script together versus prose, and I think it's something that I'm working on. But there is that thing of that perfectionist piece. Now, if someone gave me a deadline, let's say for like a short story or something like that, I could throw it together really quickly and not think too much about it. But if there was no deadline, I would analyze it to death, because every word to me is like has to be, every sentence has to be perfect, and I've kind of drowned in that in the past. So I'm working on that. That's kind of where I'm at with that stuff. But with a script or a screenplay, it literally is just me translating what I see in my head, what I hear in my ears, and it's an easier process for me, and really just comes down to making sure I've got everything on the page and an artist that understands what they're reading. It's more about communication and collaboration at that level, and just making sure the story doesn't get lost in the mix.
Right. Yeah,
It's
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it has pros and cons. I have a soundtrack in my head for everything that I write. So
you can really,
you don't get that in the comic, but it's there are things you can do that you couldn't do in a movie or so there's a give and take, and it all kind of balances out, hopefully.
Yeah. I really think I'm excited. Obviously reading issue by issue does give it more of, that television episode, like an episode a week type of feel. So I'm really excited. I've already pre-ordered a copy of the trade. I'm excited to read it all in one go, because I do feel that like the flow of Black of Heart is very much like, you can hear the sad saxophone in the background going, while he's walking through New York City. And it's like, it flows very much like an old black and white movie that my dad and I would watch. That was something that I was really into as a kid. Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock, all of that kind of stuff was very much, part of growing up for me. And I feel like Black of Heart almost feels like I wouldn't have been shocked to see Alfred Hitchcock walk past in a panel or something like that. It feels like that cameo. Kind of storytelling. Exactly. It feels like that kind of storytelling. So I'm excited to read it all in one go, because it just flows that well.
Oh, thanks, man. That's actually a great point about Twilight Zone. That was a pretty big influence growing up for sure. And and that's sort of what Sleepless was for me, was like kind of some short stories that had that kind of Twilight Zone feel. But yeah, that's definitely the case. Like I said, everything I work on seems to have some interesting twists and turns that hopefully you don't see coming, and it's probably directly related to Alfred Hitchcock and Twilight Zone and those things from my childhood.
Yeah, for me personally, those were the two that immediately came to mind. That's the two easiest comparisons I have, like a Twilight Zone episode or, something right out of the brain of Alfred Hitchcock. So, take that however you want. I mean it as the greatest compliment, but, I just really cannot say enough how much I enjoyed it. And now you brought up Sleepless. Is that available through your website still?
It is. I think
okay.
Just the dolls is sold out. But yeah, so Sleepless is it's like 4 short stories. There's a different artist on each story, and it is kind of like a love letter to Twilight Zone. Twist endings and all that fun stuff. I think it's got a little bit of everything, some sci-fi, some comedy, some horror. It's just something that I had fun putting together. There's the short in there that I did with David, who's the artist on Black Heart. So if you like his work, you'll probably enjoy that story. Hopefully.
Now, you brought up kind of genre like blending. That kind of seems something that you really enjoy doing. Is there any like really weird mashup that you are just like, I am going to conquer that one day? Like maybe, I don't even know, like some sort of like horror, like cartoon or something. I don't know. Just any sort of like weird mashup where you're just like, you know what? I want to combine these two, throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I actually do have a horror comedy that I'm hoping will get picked up. It is like its own thing. It's called Welcome to Dahmerville, and it's basically about a boy who moves with his mom to this town that's overrun with like serial killers from throughout like history.
All right.
And there's like some fun twists and stuff in there. But I didn't want it to be a serious thing. Like it's a comedy for sure. I wanted the art style to be like cartoony, and that was the whole, kind of point of it, was that it was over the top, set in the 90s, kind of a nod to like X-Files. It's just another story. I have so many.
That quick little like snippet right there is enough to make me like. I'll personally go out and campaign for this to get picked up. That's fantastic.
Right.
I mean, the name alone like brings a chuckle to me. It's just like, welcome to Diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you think like, who would want to live there?
Yeah. I think I did.
But that makes sense.
Yep.
I think I did. One of the blogs I did on my website is basically on writing a pitch, and it has the pitch for that in there. So if you're interested, you can go there and check it out. And please sign up for my blog, which is not released annoyingly. I would say sparingly. But yeah, there's I think the cover art is on there too, which is by Jorge Corona, who did obviously Middle West. It's a really fun series. It's another one of those examples of something that I wrote and is finished and is sitting in a drawer that I would love to find a home for. So help me find homes for all my homeless children, please.
I kind of really find that fascinating that you've got these stories, and you said you're kind of like an all at once. The story is written, it's done. And then is that the point, once it's done, that's the point where you pitch then. So I find it fascinating that you almost have this bookshelf of stories that, are done. They're complete stories. And now it's just getting them out into the world. That's a very different, model than a lot of what comics is based on, where it's like, basically you pitch the idea and then the story comes later. And you're more or less pitching the story, and it's
not a successful model. It's not a successful model.
Well, hopefully it can be, because I find it fascinating. I almost feel like more of your vision, like you're pitching a complete story. I'm gonna guess that there's not much interference or like changing things up going on. Whereas if you pitch an idea, it's prone to be kind of workshopped and changed along the way, where you start with one thing and then the end result is possibly something completely different. And so I think that's really fascinating that you're pitching full stories. This is it. Do you want to pick it up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the way I work, I guess. And I go through that process on my own. I can tell you that like the sci-fi thing I wrote that started as something completely different ended up in a totally different place, and I love it to death. But if I had pitched the original idea, I would have been really unhappy, I think, if I hadn't already like gone and worked through that ahead of time. And so that's I guess I'm the type of writer who starts with something, and in some cases will let the story take me where it wants, instead of trying to control it. And sometimes you get a surprise. That's one of the joys of it for me, is letting the experience itself surprise me, and standing up from my desk and being like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Like that's part of the fun.
That kind of all goes back to how you said earlier about writing yourself into a corner. If the story's complete, you've already gone through the no, that won't work. Like, I always think about, let's say you wrote an issue, it gets published, the readers read it. There's no going back from that, not
Right.
easily anyways. Like once it's out into the world, there's no coming back and being like, well, okay, I don't like that decision now and I want to write it this way. It's done. You have to write down that road now.
Right.
So I think that's something that you kind of like eliminate for yourself by doing it the way that you do.
Yeah. But I am painting myself into a corner in my own way, in the sense that if I've spent all this time writing something, I may love it and it means the world to me, but if nobody else wants to publish it, then it is literally going to sit there.
That's true. It kind of goes back to the old saying about the tree falling in the woods and no one there to hear it. If you write a book and there's no one there to read it, did you really write a book? It's like, well, yes, you did, but at that point, it's just like a labor of love.
Yeah. Well, and it's, not for nothing, but it's good practice, right? Like, I feel like I get stronger every time I write. So, at least there's that silver lining if there's nothing else. But, the truth is, like I did Binary Gray and Black of Heart, I could fund this stuff on my own. And in some cases I will be. And some of these things, the new projects that I have coming up, if they don't get a publisher, they're going to be on Kickstarter, because they're too important.
I was just going to say, we are really in an era of the Kickstarter book. I mean, every day I see 5-6 new projects, and that's just what comes across, my feed.
Right.
It really is the age of Kickstarters right now. And, you even have people who are established in the comic world. For example, you had Scott Snyder doing Nocterra as a Kickstarter. You got Matt Kent and Jeff Lemire off doing a Kickstarter together. I think people are really finding a lot of joy in bringing these projects to life themselves and kind of being in control of their own destiny,
Absolutely. And I think that's probably the wave of the future. You know what I mean? For me, I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see. Matt Kent is a great example of someone who was really doing his own thing early on, and one of my favorite writers. And his stuff grabbed me super early. And I think I'm kind of at that point where I'm not sure if I'm writing something that a publisher would maybe understand. I feel like they're looking at it from a perspective of like, how do we make as much money as possible? What's the audience for this?
Can we make an action figure?
Yeah.
T-shirts, action figure, masks. What can we milk this for?
And some of the stuff I'm working on is just, experimental in some ways. The newest thing I was telling you about, where it's happening in 3 different realities. Like, I know how to talk about it, but I don't know how to put that on one page and send it to an editor and be like, what do you think? Because it's too much. You know what I mean? Like, it would be better. I would be better off 5 minutes on a call with them to explain it.
Right.
And then even why I'm passionate about it and what it means to me personally, than to try and get like the story beats into like, a Word document. To me, that's not selling it, and it's not doing the story justice. And that's where the gap is for me. And I'm trying to figure out, how to bridge that gap, I guess. And, like I said, it's all a process. It's all an evolution. And if I can't bridge that gap, then I will be on Kickstarter, trying to, actually doing what I'm doing now, right? Which is like talking to people about it and telling them my personal story and how it relates to the thing that I've written. And hopefully that resonates, and some people want to read it for themselves. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really interesting point there that I haven't really given much thought before. But like, imagine condensing anything down to one page and trying to portray the story you want to tell.
Well, it's a art
through one page, and that's really interesting. Yeah,
it's definitely its own thing, and some people are really good at it. I think I'm maybe just not one of those people.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I try to think of like other examples of comics that are established and out there, and like how would I narrow down this premise to one page? And that's definitely a challenge, and it's something I've never really had to give any thought. So it's nothing I've ever really thought of. But that's a really interesting point that you make.
Well, yeah.
Like, well, in my head, it's there, but how do I translate that onto one page?
Right. You've got the elevator pitch element. You've got the themes that you want to discuss. Then you have like a story summary, and then ideally you want to explain to whatever publisher you're talking to why it's a good fit for them, right? And you want to try to get all of that into the smallest amount of space as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine trying to cram all that at one page.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not possible, but you want to try if you can.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, fellas, I actually have to run. Jill is blowing up my phone. So it was a pleasure talking to you guys. I am going to dip out. I don't know if you guys want to keep on talking.
No, we'll just cut it out here. Good time. We pretty much went over everything.
That's the joys of, we got a wedding planning going on. We got vacation next week, our pre-wedding honeymoon, technically, because we don't have time afterwards. But Chris, thank you so much again for taking time out of your day to talk to us. I really enjoyed picking your brain about, the way you go about things. I think that's really a breath of fresh air to like the status quo of comics. I'm really thankful again. Shout out to Comic Burrito for pointing me in the direction of Black of Heart, because it was, right in my wheelhouse.
Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time and having me on, and anytime, give me a shout. I'm happy to come in and talk. We can talk about other people's
Absolutely.
books.
Next time you announce a project or anything, we'd love to have you on and talk about it some more. Once again, just reminding everyone, Black of Heart available in comic shops anywhere else on July 28th. Don't forget. Tell your comic shop now you want that, because believe me,
and I'll attach all the Chris's links to the comment section if you guys missed anything or want to check out his other stuff.
Yeah, the other link has links to like Amazon and Barnes and Noble and BAM and something else, I think.
Everything that you could possibly need to get your books. Excellent.
Yeah, I'll attach it to the bottom. All right. Thanks, guys. Let's end this bad boy.